Good evening and welcome back to IDC, the Incredible Discovery Channel. I'm your host, Philip. Runners beware. The first case we have today deals with the well-renowned 26.2 long race, commonly known as the marathon, which has reportedly been run, causing participants to collapse into comas and dying around the country, though primarily in races held in warmer climates. There have been 10 confirmed deaths so far, and all runners have exhibited nearly identical symptoms. Could this be the result of a scandal, a previously unknown epidemic? Stay tuned to IDC to learn the true nature of this strange occurrence. More with Patricia on the site right after this commercial break. Introducing the all-new sports energy drink, Fakerade. How does it work? Well, the water level in the drink is made to match the concentration gradient in your cells, and through diffusion, it'll always keep a perfect balance. Buy it now at any store near you. And we're back. Now we'll display footage from the Rock and Roll Arizona Marathon.
Hello, I'm Patricia. I was dispatched here to investigate the nature of these mysterious deaths as soon as we noticed the patterns.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
As you saw in the clips from the Rock and Roll Arizona Marathon, the runners have been running for around 4 hours and 45 minutes straight, and the race ended. But the runners suddenly collapsed. We have received reports that the occurrence has actually happened before, all over the nation. These strangely interconnected incidents actually have some facts in common. In all of the cases, the deceased runners had no signs of performance-enhancing drug use. In addition, all of the deceased runners suffered the same fate after running a marathon. First, they were brought to the hospital with complaints of severe vomiting and confusion after the race. Shortly after the admission, patients fell into a coma and later on died right here. Hearing this shocking news, we've teamed up with experts to find the real cause of the marathoners' rapid unconsciousness. Back to you, Phil.
Yes, Patricia, I really am fascinated by this new discovery. But we're not just done yet. We have more news coming up right after this break.
Cellular transport across the cell membrane is used to maintain homeostasis, which is the regulation of different levels in the body to maintain a constant balance. Also known as the phospholipid bilayer, the cell membrane is a boundary that encloses the cell and separates it from the external environment. It regulates what enters and leaves the cell and is made of 2 layers of phospholipids and embedded with proteins to help with transport. There are 2 different kinds of cellular transport. One of them is passive transport. Passive transport is movement across the cell membrane that does not require energy. It occurs due to a concentration gradient, as substances move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. There are 3 types of passive transport: diffusion, osmosis, and facilitated diffusion. Diffusion occurs when dissolved particles that are small and nonpolar diffuse directly through the cell membrane. Examples of particles that go through diffusion are carbon dioxide and oxygen. Osmosis is the movement of water across a semi-permeable membrane. The water can move in 3 different directions. Water moves out of the cell in a hypertonic solution, which is highly concentrated with solute. Water moves into the cell in a hypotonic solution, which is lowly concentrated with solute. Water moves into and out of the cell at the same rate in an isotonic solution, which has the same concentration of solute as the cell. In facilitated diffusion, ion channels are transmembrane proteins embedded in the cell membrane that offer an opening for slightly large molecules to diffuse across the cell membrane, like calcium and chloride. Today I'm here with Dr. Desai in her office. I have heard many great things about you and your discoveries. This marathon case really baffles the mind. Can our viewers and I get an explanation on why exactly the runners have collapsed in an instant? Marathoners always provide water for the runners, don't they? If it isn't dehydration, then what could it be?
As per your request, I have conducted research of my own. I've actually found the root of the problem, and it will probably shock the majority of viewers. To sum it up, it wasn't the lack of water that killed these runners, it was actually too much of it.
As you can see, the runners were regularly drinking water as the water levels increased up to 53 liters from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., which is a little above the normal water level. Too much water in their bodies caused the sodium levels to decrease down to 126 MEq over L, which is way below the normal sodium level. And what's more, at 3 o'clock, the runners' intracranial pressure also increased up to 29 mmHg, 14 more than the maximum normal level. These graphs support the fact that all of the deceased runners were diagnosed with hyponatremia, which occurs when the level of sodium in the blood is too low. The excessive fluid in the lungs and the brain caused their pulmonary and cerebral edema, which resulted in an increase of intracranial pressure. This has happened because the runners' bodies were trying to reach dynamic equilibrium to account for the drastic water levels. These may just be statistics, but this could show what had happened to the runners and why this mystery came to be. Wow, I never would have guessed that was the case. Well, you guys heard it. Too much water can really cause harm. However, my dear viewers, please don't stop drinking your water. Let's bring it back to Phil.
Thanks, Patricia. I really am fascinated by this new discovery. But we're not just done yet.
The second type of cell transport is active transport. It is movement across the cell membrane that does require energy, which is ATP. The movement occurs against the concentration gradient as substances move from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration. The first method of active transport is channel pumps. Certain channel proteins in the cell membrane first push molecules against their concentration gradient to maintain unequal levels using ATP. These channel proteins are very specific and can work into or out of the cell. The other method of active transport is vesicle movement. Substances that are too big for protein channels can enter and exit in vesicles, which are membrane-bound sacs. Vesicles can bring substances into and out of the cell.
Water. It is one of the most important necessities of life, as it is crucial for us to hydrate ourselves, especially when exercising. But who would ever guess that too much water would actually cause more harm to the body? Water is a hypotonic solution, which means that it has a lower solute level than the inside of the cell. In a solution, solute is a substance being dissolved, while the solvent is the dissolver. In this case, the specific cells were brain cells, and the solute involved was salt. When the cells absorb too much water in an attempt to reach equilibrium, which occurs when the concentration of a substance is equal throughout a space, they start to expand and will eventually reach a point where they explode. With the solute to solvent ratio too high within, the cell would attempt to absorb more water and balance it out. But since animal cells do not have cell walls, they will burst if they absorb too much, which is why the runners fell into a coma and died due to a rise in intracranial pressure.
Word has just come in. The first step to deal with this situation from ever happening again is to monitor each runner's liquid intake before, during, and after the race. This will ensure the runner will be stopped before their water intake has. In addition, another new solution has just been found. By giving the runners this revolutionary new isotonic energy drink, Fakerade, we can eliminate the rise in intracranial pressure as the cells will no longer burst if the solution given to hydrate the runners is no longer hypotonic. With the arrival of this new energy drink, there will no longer be any worries about overhydration or dehydration of the runners. With one quick swig, you will be able to rehydrate yourself in this solution, developed to match your solid to solvent ratios. They'll even replenish your electrolytes, which are crucial for carrying out every bodily process. We'll be back next week with more mysterious phenomenon that we'll take a crack at right from the comfort of your living room.